Next, meet Catherine Tai. She was just confirmed as the new U.S. Trade Representative. Now, the USTR is responsible for a lot of things, but the top of the list is negotiating new trade deals. Ms. Tai has no experience doing that whatsoever. She's never been involved in a significant international organizational treaty negotiation, and she's never even managed a large staff. She was a congressional staffer until very recently. That tells me everything I need to know about the Biden trade plans. Aside from a deal with the UK, there aren't going to be any. Now, the other part of the USTR's job is to prosecute trade cases against countries that violate the spirit and the letter of American trade law. And for that, Catherine Tai is wildly well qualified. She worked for the USTR's office under Obama. Her primary job was to sue China. I think you can see where this is going. The goal here for the Biden team is not to expand the trade system, but to concentrate it and sue the hell out of anyone who doesn't agree with American law. Next up, Europe. You guys remember a few years ago when the Californians and then ultimately the federal authorities sued BMW and Volkswagen for cheating on air emissions tests? Basically, the Germans had specifically designed their vehicles to detect when they were being tested for smog and to change the way that they operate so they could fool the test. That's actually not illegal in the United States, but it is illegal in Europe. So the Europeans were sued in European courts by American jurisprudence. And of course, the Americans won because the Germans actually had been lying. Some version of that is about to happen with human rights as regards the Chinese and as regards the Russians. We're going to use European law to sue them in their own courts for violations of their own laws. At the same time, we're going to have a trade war. Relations with the Europeans are going to hit a new low. There is no sign that the Biden administration is looking to shore up the alliance system in any meaningful way. Our relations have been diverging for a while now, and it will be under Biden that we experience a formal breach because no one can say, oh, this is just Trump. If somebody who's been involved in American politics for 50 years, who is the anti-Trump, is the one who makes these policies happen, this is real and this is permanent. And then finally, there's China. The relations with the Chinese are getting ugly very, very quickly. We have a lot of things that are going horribly wrong. On his way out the door, Donald Trump rolled a couple of grenades into this relationship. He called what was going on in Xinjiang a genocide because, it is. And he said that any American diplomat at any level can go to Taiwan without needing prior approval and can do so as a formal representative of the US government, which is about that far away from formal recognition. His first day on the job, Trump's policies were reaffirmed by incoming President Biden. Biden also reaffirmed every tariff and sanction the Trump administration had put on any Chinese entity. That includes sanctions on the Chinese equivalent of Chevron. We now have new policies on Hong Kong and Tibet. In his first week, Biden ordered 2 American aircraft carrier battle groups to sail through the South China Sea and do military exercises within sight of the islands that the Chinese claim. And then there's also Catherine Tai, who is Taiwanese. The Chinese perceive this as a full court press, and they are not wrong. And don't forget about developments on the other side of the Pacific. What growth the Chinese had in calendar year 2020 wasn't from consumption. It wasn't really from exports. It was mostly inventory builds. It's like end-around style growth. That's not sustainable and that's not healthy. In addition, Chinese know that their demography is sharply terminal, and they know that their economic model is collapsing. So they are closing ranks, they are demonizing outsiders, and they are hunkering down for a Maoist-style political collapse, hoping that they can hold the line for a Maoist-style dictatorship. American and Chinese officials are exchanging barbs in Alaska as we speak. Things do not seem to be going well. I expect not just a breach with the Europeans this year, but a full-on trade war and a breach with the Chinese this year. And if there's one thing that pretty much everyone across the entire American political spectrum agrees on, is that the relations with the Chinese need to get worse. And the one faction that might disagree with that is the business community, and right now they are political orphans. If you're looking for places that the Americans are going to care about moving forward, this is the list. Every country that is lit up has two things going for it. First, they've got positive demographies, which suggest consumption-based growth is possible for at least another 30 years. Second, they have relatively easy access to energy supply, so they can keep the lights on in a world where the US isn't patrolling. What's different about the two colors is that if you're in blue, you really don't have any significant security concerns, internal or external. And if you're green, you do. Now, we're all aware of what the murder rate is in Mexico and how the drug war is nasty. They're still blue. That gives you an idea of where the threshold is. If you're looking for countries that are going to need to be defended, that the US is going to care about, this is probably the whole list. A few quick call outs. First of all, Western Hemisphere is going to kind of have a cordon sanitaire. The US won't allow anyone from the outside to play. Mexico obviously is our firmest partner in this. Second, Southeast Asia, relatively positive demographies. They have most of the resources they need locally. And as the Chinese system and the Northeast Asian system breaks down, these are the logical beneficiaries. And then third, it's worth taking a good close look at Southeast Asia. India is never going to be the next China, but India is also not going to disintegrate like China is. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an ally, but it certainly can be a partner moving forward. I mean, the solution here is shockingly simple. We need immigration reform, but that's a congressional prerogative. We haven't had meaningful immigration change in this country since 1986. The category of asylum is one that was included in that law because it was Cold War propaganda. People who were basically being invited from the former Soviet Empire to the United States so they could get preferential treatment. Obviously, the Cold War ended a while ago. In the short term, the solution is something that actually I think the Biden administration may have figured out. They're putting tent cities down in the Central American countries to process claims there. Anything that puts the sharp end of the American immigration system as close to the communities where people are scared and leaving as possible is going to, at a minimum, provide better intelligence to the United States for the scope of the problem. But remember that this wave of people that's coming up right now, they're not fleeing any specific political prosecution. I'm not saying it's a lovely place in Central America, but that's not what this is about. They got hit by 2 Class 5 hurricanes back to back in October and November. It takes 2 months to walk to the border. There literally is nothing left in most of Central America. These people have had better medical care and better food and better security while walking through Mexico for the last 2 months than they have at home, which means that they were going to come no matter what happened on November 6th. We need a policy that addresses for that. I'd say President Carter probably had the best policy in the past. Last time when he was in charge and hurricanes hit the area, he sent immigration officials down to basically offer 3-year work permits. And if you check in with your officer and you pay your taxes and keep your nose clean at the end of 3 years, you can either get a free ticket home or get a path towards citizenship or renew the work permit. So we made it in everyone's best interest to participate in the system rather than avoid it. And until we can kind of flip that switch, we're going to have some version of this.